Thanks for joining me today. Grab a seat. Today we are going to discuss the writing mistakes and the lack of narrative understanding that led to the writing of Dragon Age The Veilguard's story and script. This video is educational. It is not a review, nor is this video intending to say anything negative about Dragon Age The Veilguard. This is purely educational to help people who are prospective writers or for people who are just enjoyers of media. I first want to apologize to my regular audience, as I know that you guys prefer when I make videos about real-world activities and games that are actually good and interesting in some way and have some redeeming qualities. So I apologize that I'm talking about Dragon Age The Veilguard again. But from an educational standpoint, we need to analyze why the writing has reached such an unanticipated level of catastrophic failure. We need to help the next generation of writers and artists learn from this so they too do not end up emotionally and developmentally stunted. And so that's why we are discussing the writing from Dragon Age The Veilguard again. Again, this is not a review, this is purely educational. In this video, I will be showing two scenes from Dragon Age The Veilguard. I will be sharing and analyzing my analysis of the actual transcript for those scenes, and I will be reading two small excerpts from my upcoming novel, Heavy Shadow, which is set in my Silver Falls game series. The novel will be available in paperback, but it will be free available online, so I'm not here to sell you a product. If you are interested in reading my novel, it will be totally free for anyone to read online digitally. So today we will be discussing the topic of character identity and how to organically express that in a storytelling environment, particularly when it comes to writing and character dialogue. We will be using character dialogue as a way to explain and express who and what a character is. So with the topic of character identity, first we will take a look at the scene play out in Dragon Age The Veilguard. Then I will perform a reading of an excerpt from my work, and we will explain how those scenes play out differently, how they were handled differently from different levels of writing. First, we will play the scene, and then we will discuss and go over in detail.
That snake's nose. She's still holding the ruby in her other hand. Maker's panties. I was so proud.
Oh,
Ah, shit. They're still holding it. Sorry.
What are you doing?
Pulling a barv.
Oh, okay.
a barv?
Tradition in the Lords of Fortune from one of our old members, Barv. Good guy, but like most of us, his plans went sideways a lot. Bad blood among your crew's not good for morale, but there's not always time for big, drawn-out apologies. So, when one of us screws up and we know we've screwed up, we do a quick 10 to put it right. Pulling a barv. Oh, there we go.
I'm glad the Lords of Fortune have Tarsh's back.
Oh, Tarsh isn't the first non-binary member of the Lords.
Really?
It was a little before your time, but Horlicks was one of ours.
Huh.
Bastard looked better than I did in a dress or pants. And out of them, too.
So this is the level of writing that a multi-million-dollar video game production from AAA Industries is able to produce. This is the best that they have right now. Let's go ahead and take a look at the transcript for this. You can see this for yourself. Let's go ahead and zoom in just a little bit. So there are a couple concepts here that I want to explain first. The first is the concept of, this may sound like it's a joke, but this is a serious term, mouth diarrhea. Where in this scene can you visually identify mouth diarrhea? If you were to just look at this visually, and you ignore the names and you can see the density of the dialogue, where do you identify mouth diarrhea? If you've picked this whole area here, then you have eyeballs. Congratulations. The next concept I want to introduce to you is unprompted information. Why would a character present information? The point of a scene of dialogue is either to pass information from one character onto another for information to be passed to the audience to progress the plot of the narrative forward or to express a character's mental state. So all of the information that is presented to either the characters or the audience needs to be prompted. Dialogue exists in two steps: a query and a response. A character makes a query, another character responds. That is the very basic element of a scene of dialogue where two or more characters are talking. So when you have unprompted information, it feels very awkward when characters suddenly just spit out mouth diarrhea. And we have unprompted information. It feels unnatural, and it is not conducive to an organic storytelling. There are two other concepts that I will explain when we get to that point, but first we'll have a look at this. Isabella. Tosh is pounding that snake's nose. She's still holding the ruby in her hand. Maker's panties. I was so proud. Ah shit, they're still holding it. Tosh, what are you doing? Isabella, pulling a barv. Oh, this should say Tosh here. Let's go ahead and fix that. Tosh. Oh, okay. I think this is the player character, perhaps. A barv. And then we have this, which it's a little too long to read here. I'm glad the Lords of Fortune have Tosh's back. Oh, Tosh isn't the first non-binary member of the Lords. Really? It was a little before your time, but Hollux was one of ours. Huh. The bastard looked better than I did in a dress or pants, and out of them too. So I'm going to put into bold the unprompted information that we have here. This is where we start our context, and I will underline text that is a wasted opportunity, something that a character should have used to respond, to either express their mental state, to tell us more about who a character is, to tell us about the narrative. I'll underline it for opportunities that were wasted and that are wasting time because they do not contribute to the scene. So, ah, shit, they're still holding it. Honestly, this is so frustrating. Okay. This does not need to be part of the story, but it leads to the rest of the dialogue, which unfortunately is... Oh, shit. Okay. 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 I said unprompted information would be in B. Technically, this is unprompted. There's no reason for the pronoun to have been brought up at all. So this character is asking what a barv is. This is not necessary. That's okay. I'm sorry, I'm taking a closer look and it's so much worse than I thought it was. This is unprompted. And bringing up non-binary is unprompted. This was unprompted information. And this is absolutely unprompted, and I don't know if I can double bold this. God, I wish I could. I'm just going to italicize and underline that because this is so incompetent in what it is setting out to do and how it sets out to do it. This scene it's a catastrophic disaster. So I want to explain to you the concept of over abstraction and over explanation. Abstraction is taking a concept and something that doesn't already have a well understood definition. So say, for example, we'll step away from this work. Let's say that I'm with a group of friends and let's say we're going to the beach, and one of the friends was supposed to bring an ice chest full of drinks. We all get to the beach, and the friend that was supposed to bring the container of drinks, we get there, we're all thirsty, and then the friend let's say his name is Josh. He realizes, I left the drinks. So now we are all at the beach. We have nothing to drink. And someone naturally says, way to Josh it up. You really Joshed it up. Because Josh messed it up. You left the drinks behind. That is an abstraction because Josh is not, it's not a verb. It's not something that you do. But in that situation, in the context, from a storytelling standpoint, the audience understands the person named Josh messed something up. Oh, you really Joshed it up, didn't you? And because the audience is there, the audience understands the context of Josh was supposed to bring the drinks. He didn't bring the drinks. Now everyone's thirsty because there are no drinks. He really Joshed it up. So when you say that, it makes sense to the audience. This situation here is called over-abstraction because what they've done is they've overly abstracted this word. It is a word that we do not understand. It is unfamiliar. And so the audience already has no connection to it. And then this character, Isabella, really unprompted, over-explains it. So this is over-abstraction because it is too vague. It is not relatable to the general audience. And then it is over-explained. You have information such as bad blood among your crew is not good for morale. Okay, we can even underline that because that is information that is so obvious that you should not have to explain that to anyone. Obviously, bad blood is not good for morale anywhere. It doesn't matter if it's your crew, anywhere. So this is wasted dialogue. If you are writing a novel and you have text in there that is so obvious that it wastes space on the page, there is no need. Take it out. If you have dialogue like this that is so useless, it just slows down your flow and it makes your storytelling clumsy and not effective. So, what we'll do is discuss how storytelling is a two-way street. You have to let the audience be part of the storytelling, and a competent writer must be able to invite and engage the audience to be part of the story. And a competent writer is able to leave room so the audience can ask their own questions, fill in their own blanks, and come to their own conclusions. Let the audience use their own life experiences to relate to the story. What we've seen, it's not just this scene, but other scenes that we have seen from Dragon Age The Veilguard, is that there is no understanding or implementation of that. All of the information that we see in the story segments of Dragon Age The Veilguard are verbatim, obvious, blatant. They have no subtext. They are just thrown in the audience's face with absolutely no invitation for the audience to engage in a deeper level. Storytelling is a two-way street. If you do not understand that concept, then you are not an actual storyteller. You are not an actual writer. Just because you can write words on a page, just because you can get hired by a multi-million-dollar company, does not mean you are an actual writer or storyteller. There are so many levels to understanding storytelling. There are so many levels to writing. So we will very quickly discuss, I'll go on to reading an excerpt from my novel next, very short, and I want to discuss who the dominant presence in this scene is. Who do you think the dominant presence in this scene is? If you guessed Isabella because she's has mouth diarrhea and everyone else only has one or two lines, oh, okay, really, huh? You are correct. This is the dominant presence in this scene. Is this dominant presence assigned with thoughtful decision-making, or is the writer self-inserting themselves into a position of authority? What the writer of the scene reveals about themselves is something important. When you have inexperienced writers, you'll see that they are writing on such a shallow surface level that the scene tells you everything you need to know about the writer. It's very revealing about the writer, whereas a competent writer is able to tell a story on a much deeper level to where you cannot actually tell who the writer is, what the writer is, because the writer has such a deeper understanding of life, of communication, of how to elicit an idea and a feeling from an audience. So that is my assessment of that scene. And now we'll do a short reading of an excerpt from my upcoming novel, Silver Falls Heavy Shadow. We'll be back soon, Dodger said as he stepped out the front door into the cool, purple morning air. As he left, he caught a glimpse of Rauno handing the two-way radio to Iron as Millian passed out on a couch in the living room. Karn offered Tira the front seat, but she politely declined, already stepping into the passenger seat on the left side of Dodger's truck. Karn hopped into the front passenger seat just as Dodger swiftly grabbed the moon pie, saving it from being crushed. With a determined grunt, the engine roared to a start, and with the windows partially rolled down to let in the fresh autumn air, they began their drive up Hill Road towards Nicholas's house. The FM radio offered a barely audible hum of static, which occasionally drifted into indiscernible mutterings of some talkback radio station. They had driven about halfway up the mountain when Karn could feel the ever-increasing weight of Dodger watching him through his peripheral vision. "Hey, Dodger, I got something to tell you," Karn spoke softly, as if trying to hide what he had to say from Tira in the back seat. She was totally absorbed, studying some crumpled old topographic map. "All right, what do you got?" Dodger answered with cool nonchalance as he kept his eyes on the road. "There's something I never told you about me. Well, I haven't ever told anyone about this." Karn's voice trembled as the blood drained from his hands. With so many lives on the line, he couldn't afford to keep information to himself any longer. While Dodger and the others struggled to scrape together any information that they could, any cards Karn had been keeping close to his chest became unbearably heavy. "There's something about me you don't know." "Relax, I already know." Dodger shrugged with a cool, distant attitude. He rolled his window down and set his arm on the door frame. The rushing sound of the air drowned out the warm hum of the radio. What?" Karn just about choked. Steam rose from his collar as his face flushed a nervous, terrified shade of red. "You know already?" "Yep. Figured it out a long time ago. I think most of the guys at the bar already know too." Dodger shrugged, keeping his voice low and calm as he kept his eyes on the road, searching for the turnoff that led to Nicholas's house. "But how?" Karn lost control of his arms and hands. He held his breath as some unseen force of horror punctured his chest, draining him of his blood. He squirmed in his seat, desperate to just escape the vehicle and hide. "Well, it doesn't really matter, does it? It's no big deal. Anyway, just don't worry about it," Dodger said in his most reassuring voice as he reached over and lightly patted Karn on the shoulder. Dodger could feel Karn trembling with some sense of horrified shame. Still, he kept his eyes on the road, not wanting to make his friend feel more cornered than he already was. "So, you know about how my brother and mom died?" Karn sighed, letting out a breath he had been holding in for nearly his entire life. "Huh? What? I thought you were going to tell me—" Dodger started in confusion, but Tira's voice cut him off before he could finish. "Dodger, turn here." Tira leaned forward, butting in between Dodger and Karn, pointing to the right of the road. With a startling jerk and a whipping of the steering wheel, the truck turned a hard right onto Majestic Road. Dodger turned to make electric, uncomfortable eye contact with Karn. "Wait, so you weren't talking about—" Dodger stuttered, feeling the oxygen be sucked violently out of his lungs by the vacuum of outer space. "That blizzard back in the 60s, when my brother and mom—" "Wait, what did you think I was talking about?" Karn squinted hard, trying to see past Dodger's sudden stony look. Dodger fell silent as he gulped hard. "Oh, God. Oh, my God. This is so awkward. Someone just kill me now, please." Tira groaned as she repeatedly slammed her head against the headrest. "No, that's what I thought you were talking about." Dodger gritted his teeth, desperate to hide his embarrassment at misunderstanding what Karn was talking about. This is a scene that addresses a character's sexuality, another character misinterpreting or misreferencing that character's understanding of not just their own identity, but what they think other people know about their identity. This is an example of handling a topic like this that is not just bluntly hitting the audience over the head with information. If you have characters just say information, it is not interesting and it is not effective storytelling. This scene works because there is information that the audience knows that other characters do not. This is a very basic narrative device that every writer should be familiar with, but it seems that we're getting to a point in the games industry right now where that is not well-known information. So this is a scene where there have been hints throughout the story about Karn's sexuality, and it is never outwardly stated, and this would be the first confirmation that other characters are aware of his sexuality. And it is presented in a way where the characters are not just reassuring Karn, the fictional character himself, but the character of Dodger is reassuring the audience, the reader as well, that it is okay, it's not a big deal, and it's not something that we need to focus on because that's not a big deal. This is a socially responsible way to handle the situation, whereas with Dragon Age, it tries to, it doesn't try, it deals with the situation by forcing a sense of shame and punishment onto the audience, and that is not an effective way to make people like a message. In fact, the method by which Dragon Age The Veilguard shares its ideology and messaging is quite damaging to people who would be in these situations, and Dragon Age is not helping. It is making the situation way worse because the writers lack maturity and an understanding of the world, and they lack self-awareness to be able to address the topic in a way that is responsible. Next, we are going to discuss the topic of character conflict. One of the most important elements of writing a narrative is the use of tension and conflict. Without conflict, the story has no point. Without tension, the story has no excitement or sense of interest for the audience to be engaged and to be interested in. The most important part of conflict and tension is what causes the conflict. What does the audience understand about the conflict? The less that the audience understands about the conflict, the less effective that conflict is as a storytelling element, and the less that the audience will care about it. The audience doesn't need an over-explanation of detail. They just need to have an understanding of the core elements that cause the conflict, and they need to understand and see a path forward to get through the conflict, to resolve the conflict, so they have something to hope for. Dragon Age refuses to make use of any tension or any conflict between the cast of characters. We've seen many scenes on the internet, and it is quite revealing about the level of writing that goes into this. So Dragon Age The Veilguard, its level of writing results in a sanitized, uncanny narrative that is not organic, and it works actually on a deeper level. It works quite well as a horror narrative because it's extremely unsettling to watch these scenes play out because it's so misaligned with reality and how real human communication and how real human relationships work, that it's genuinely a horrifying experience to watch the story play out. So on that regard, I suppose this is actually quite effective storytelling from a horror standpoint. Every single line of dialogue, and this is for writers, this is very important philosophy to keep in mind, is that every single line of dialogue that a character speaks or does not speak is an opportunity for the writer to further explore and express that character's personality, history, their unique identity, and their mental state. Why do characters say certain things? Why do characters react a certain way? Again, dialogue functions on a query-response structure. Why would a character query something a certain way? Why are they asking for information a certain way? And when a character responds, why did they respond that way? This is what allows us to organically understand these characters. So the audience should be able to learn who the characters are, and the audience should expect characters to respond to queries and situations a specific way. It should feel really good. It should feel satisfying when the character does meet the audience expectations, when they respond the way that the audience expects. And it should be shocking when characters do the opposite of what the audience expects. And there should be a very good reason and a clear reason why they respond opposite to what the audience expects. The audience should wonder and ask, why did they do that? From the writer, there needs to be a well-considered reason for this to happen. Just saying words, and this is extremely important if you take anything away from today's lesson, is just saying words and giving the audience information is not storytelling. A pamphlet on a guided cave tour just says words and it just gives the audience information. It is not storytelling. So Dragon Age is the equivalent of reading a pamphlet on a guided cave tour, because all it is doing is shoving information in the audience's face. And that is why it is not engaging. The script, the story are just not engaging. Okay, let's go ahead and let this scene play.
You two done fighting then? I can't have you at each other's throats.
Lucanus is still an assassin. Kills people for money.
And Davrin's still self-righteous. Judgmental, too. Typical warden. No offense.
If we let that get in the way of stopping the gods...
We won't. We cannot.
So, let's go ahead and have a look at the transcript for this. Let's analyze the text here in a literal sense. You two done fighting then? I can't have you at each other's throats. So this is the query. Are you done fighting? He's asking for information. He has an explanation here. I can't have you at each other's throats. This is basically fine. Davrin, his response to the query is, Lucanus is still an assassin, kills people for money. I tried to gloss over this topic here, but I'll explain it now, is the concept of useless text. Saying things, well, we mentioned this earlier, saying things that are obvious and blatant information. There is no subtext or no further meaning as to why or how those things are said. It results in useless text. This is useless text. This is obvious information that we don't need. The audience doesn't need that. They know what an assassin is. They know Lucanus is an assassin. And so he did not answer the query with the first answer there. And there should be an interesting reason when a character avoids answering a query. There should be an interesting reason. So he responds with useless text. And then we have Lucanus, says, and Davrin's still self-righteous, judgmental too, typical warden, no offense. This one is more interesting because it explains his mental state. He is explaining that he doesn't like that Davrin is self-righteous because this is with negative connotation, but then he ends it with no offense, which unfortunately weakens his entire statement here. So this neutralizes itself in 4 sentences. Then Davrin says, if we let that get in the way of stopping the gods. This, I don't know this character, but I have a feeling that he doesn't ever say anything useful or meaningful because he is evasive with the way that he's written and the way that he speaks. So this isn't really that much of an answer because it's a fragmented sentence, so it doesn't actually make a statement. It is, if we let that get in the way of stopping the gods, then what? Then what? If we let that get in the way of stopping the gods, then what? So this is a useless statement already. We'll go ahead and unline that because it's useless. Lucanus says, we won't, we cannot. So we have these lines of dialogue are actually useless because they don't actually say anything. So this entire scene should have been edited down to this. The whole scene should have been this. We won't. Are you too done fighting? We won't. We cannot. And we should edit that down to this. So this scene is so frustrating because they refuse to let characters have conflicts. It's what makes things interesting. So conflict between characters is such an interesting and organic way to express the difference in ideals and beliefs of different characters. It should give the audience insight into the history and the relationships of those characters. And what I've seen from this script, and this scene is just one example, from what I've seen, is that the writers of this do not have an understanding of that concept in any way. I will do a second reading from my Silver Falls Heavy Shadow novel, And it is a similar situation. I'm reading this to make the point of how you can use character conflict to make the story interesting and to move the story forward while also giving you insight into the character's history, relationships, and mental states. The room settled to a calm as Karn heartily chomped down on his bacon and eggs. As Iron finished his coffee, a terrible pounding rattled the entire house. Dodger jumped up, reflexively reaching for the throwing knives on his belt. Rauno snapped to attention, his eyes locking onto the front door like an eagle. From outside, some frenzied, muffled voice shouted out something incoherent. Tira rushed to the door to find a scruffy older man, unshaven with bloodshot eyes, unkempt hair, and a jacket that was buttoned up unevenly. She recognized such a broken, disheveled man in an instant. It was her great-uncle, $1 Million Buck. Behind him, another familiar figure towered above him, blocking the sunlight from breaching the front door. "I saw your trucks parked out front. Dodger, you here?" Million stumbled into the house unsteadily as his wiry voice creaked out. The other figure sauntered on in afterward with a swagger. The large man eyed the antique farming and wood-carving tools hanging on the walls as if assessing their sale value. "Nice pad," Steele grinned, expecting to be greeted gratefully by the people inside. "Yep, I'm here. And great. You brought Steelheart too," Dodger muttered plainly as he got up from his seat and walked toward Million. "The kid. Romanik, you seen him?" Million pleaded desperately, his demeanor weak and pathetic in a way that Tira had never seen before. She audibly gasped at the state Million was in. "Romanik? The kid who was at the bonfire behind the bar? The chunky chicken kid?" Dodger pretended to not notice Million's broken state, but he was knocked back by the pervasive stench of liquor coming from Million's breath. "Yeah, the kid. He didn't come into work this morning. He was supposed to start work at 8 a.m., but he didn't show up," Million croaked. His shoulders slumped as he struggled to maintain his balance. "Hey, just relax, baby." Karn shrugged as he shoved breakfast in his mouth. "Young men are like that. Sometimes they're just late to work, and sometimes they forget they have a shift and don't show up." "Not Romanik. That kid is always on time. He never misses work, and he never makes excuses. He's not here. I don't know where he is. I have to find him," Million pleaded as he stumbled to the kitchen table, his words barely able to stand on their own. "Geez, Pops, why are you so obsessed with him?" Steele crossed his arms and smirked. "An old, lonely fellow like you? You some kind of sugar daddy for a hot young Mexican man, huh?" Like a bolt of lightning had struck, Million's eyes awoke with searing fire. As Million whipped around, with clenched fists, his boots hit the hardwood floor with renewed balance and the sound of thunder. In an instant, his pathetic desperation had been tempered into an electric rage. Million's piercing eyes pinned Steele in place like two barrels of a shotgun. "What the fuck did you just say?" Million growled, his voice rumbling like a storm cloud on the verge of bursting. "Relax, Pops, it was a joke." Steele tried to laugh it off, but Million cut him off. "You shut your useless fucking mouth. If you ever talk like that again, I'll knock your teeth out and shove them so far down your throat you'll think your asshole is your new mouth." Million roared, his thunderous voice rumbling the family photos hanging on the walls. Steele disappeared into his jacket as his eyes nearly filled with tears of fear. Million took a seismic, thunderous step towards Steele. "Get the fuck out of here before you really make me mad." "But I drove you here and—" Steele whimpered. "I said get out of my face, you useless piece of shit." Million just about rumbled the entire house as he clenched his fists. The overweight man flinched, shutting his eyes as he scampered away, terrified of incurring the wrath of someone he knew he had no right to fight back against. This is a scene that is focused entirely on a conflict between various characters, how they feel about not just the world around them, but how they feel about each other. We see hints of history between these various characters. We have meaningful reasons as to why characters chime in when they do, why characters say what they do. It lets us know about those characters' perspectives, their life history, and it is not a matter of, oh, this character hasn't said anything for a while, let's let them say, let's let them say, oh, really? Oh, We do not see characters sanitized with just agreeing with each other just to get the difficult writing out of the way, because it is quite challenging and difficult to write dialogue like this that is believable and effective. And in order to do that, you need to have life experiences. If your life experience is sitting at home playing on Twitter all day long, then your life experiences will be nothing. There are no life experiences there, and you will end up writing dialogue like Dragon Age The Veilguard. So that was my reading from my upcoming novel, Silver Falls Heavy Shadow. Just for reference, again, we will compare the writing in that scene to Dragon Age The Veilguard.
You two done fighting then? I can't have you at each other's throats.
Lucanus is still an assassin. Kills people for money.
And Davrin's still self-righteous. Judgmental, too. Typical warden. Ah, no offense.
If we let that get in the way of stopping the gods...
We won't. We cannot.
So I hope this video has been useful to you. Again, my intention with this video is to help you as a writer to further develop your understanding of writing as a storytelling tool, to help you if you just enjoy stories and video games. Maybe you have a bit more of an understanding of the process that goes behind that as well. Thank you very much for watching. Please take care of yourselves. And again, I'm not here to say anything negative about the game itself. If you enjoy the game, then I'm happy for you. Please take care of yourselves, be well, and if you'd like to hear me cover other topics, you may let me know in the comment section. Thank you very much.